I think any of you who have heard Hassan's comments and Don's analysis of what happened at the trial last April uh, cannot but be shocked by the failure of protection of his rights. It cries out about injustice, unfair process, and miscarriage of justice. What I'd like to do in the few minutes that I have is to talk a little bit about the more formal side of human rights and the denial of rights in Hassan's case. Uh, the reality of human rights, of course, is not something that we're just lucky to have. It's not something that we have to go looking for. Human rights belong to each one of us, and they are inherent to our human identity. They're not arbitrarily defined or determined by who or what we are. And denial of human rights is the denial of fundamental human dignity and is itself a crime against humanity, against our humanity and against Hassan's. Denial of one person's human rights is a denial of everyone's rights, and a failure to protect those rights makes us complicit in their denial. So going back to the standards that we apply, and these are certainly important. They came about for every good reason. But I'd like to take us to two documents, two standards that have been set over the years. You're probably familiar with them, so I won't belabor this. But the first is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, going back to 1948, and was described at the time as a response to the, quote, barbarous acts which outraged the conscience of mankind. And the Universal Declaration has many articles, 30, but I'd like to just touch very quickly on a number of, 6 of those, in fact. One, the right to freedom from torture or degrading treatment or punishment. Hassan was held in his cell for up to 22 hours a day. Essentially, he was held in solitary confinement during the 3 years and 2 months that he was held in the French prison. Courts across Canada have ruled that extensive solitary confinement is, in essence, a form of torture. It is certainly a degrading way of treating an individual. Another article, Article 8, describes the right to a remedy by competent tribunal. I'll just refer you back to Don's description, excellent description of how the trial last April was not only incompetent, but it was totally fabricated, unfair. Hassan, I think, called it a kangaroo court, but in any case, a sham of judicial proceeding. Another article, freedom from arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. And I'll just leave that one with you. But it's clear that what happened in Hassan's case challenges that right that was established in 1948. The right to a fair and public hearing. Nothing more to say on that one, but it's so evident. The right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. The outrage across Canada in the very early days, which resulted in Hassan losing his teaching post at, in fact, Carleton University. He was teaching in both Carleton and Ottawa U. But the venom and the anger and the attacks were certainly not evidence of him being considered innocent in the court of public opinion. And the right to free movement in and out of the country. Well, I think we can talk at length about the failure of Canada's Extradition Act. You've seen a number of references to that already. Thankfully, there has been some work done by parliamentary committees to reform Canada's Extradition Act, but that has a long way to go before the reality sets in. The other standard that I'd like to just comment on briefly is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Canadian Charter, in fact, is described as the highest law of the land. In other words, the provisions of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is not some sort of fanciful or pleasant document that sits waiting for realization. It is the highest law of the land. And as with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we are faced with clear evidence, clear, unquestionable indication of the way Hassan's rights have been denied him. Everyone has the right not to be arbitrarily detained or imprisoned. Everyone has the right on arrest or detention to be informed promptly of the reasons therefor. That did not happen. In fact, it never happened until the trial took place in April of last year. Any person charged with an offense has the right to be informed without unreasonable delay of the specific offense. In Hassan's case, of course, that information took years to come out, and even then was based on wrong information or intelligence gathered from goodness knows where, but certainly was not given the information that is required by the Canadian Charter. Also, any person charged with an offense has to be informed, has to be tried within a reasonable time. Once again, to hold somebody in France, even though France had said that the evidence was already for a trial, it took them 3 years and 2 months to try to put together a case, and that case failed. The same, any person charged with an offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. And finally, everyone has the right not to be subjected to any cruel or unusual treatment or punishment. So, and that's only part of it. There's also fundamental moral and ethical standards that we expect in the way we treat our fellow human beings. The right to be treated decently, the right to not be placed in a state of limbo, expecting the possibility of arrest at any moment, the right to be supported by our government when, in fact, the evidence presented fails or is shown to be completely bogus. I'll leave that there, and I think I say little more. It's, as I say, it cries out as a lesson in the denial of human rights. And Hassan, unfortunately, is the victim of that.